Christopher.
Hi, Edward.
How are you?
I'm very good. How are you doing?
I'm good. So, tell me about your new collection.
So, the new collection is kind of a little bit of an eclectic mix of everything that I love about Britishness. It's the highs, the lows, opulence, the working class, the different sides of ceremonies and pomp and traditions, and fashion and clothes through the kind of ages. And I'd been looking at all these photographs because it just didn't feel like the season that needed a particular theme. And I was just kind of gravitating towards things that I love. And that's how the collection was kind of born. And it was through that process of kind of finding these magical images, some of which I've grown up with and have known all my life. Others I kind of discovered as I started kind of researching. That I decided it would be amazing to be able to show these photographs as part of the collection. And so kind of it's kind of all come together as a show of fashion, but also a show of photography, British photography, or photography of Britishness. They're not necessarily all British photographers of Britishness and kind of the kind of different facets of what Britishness means. So yeah, it's kind of an exhibition and a show and lots of different things going on.
And you've always championed Britishness.
Yeah.
Why is it so vital now?
Yeah. There are big kind of macro things changing in the world. You know, one of them being Brexit. And I was a staunch Remainer. But I feel like we have got to take a very pragmatic approach and say, okay, the world is changing, and how can we make the best of this situation? I feel like identity is just being challenged at the moment, and I feel like we need to kind of, I think in order to go forward, sometimes you need to reflect and look backwards, and I feel like that is the moment we're living in because of all these changes, and I think fashion always represents that, and that's why I was so excited by you and kind of your world, because I know that's something that you've always believed in as well.
Going back to sort of the idea of Brexit, it's like, yes, we can sit here and we can sort of all cry, it's happened. So how do we move forward? Yeah. How do we I'm interested in how do we sort of reclaim what it means to be British again? Because I feel, there were young people who were born European are no longer European. Yeah.
The way that I always have looked at Burberry is we've got this extraordinary history, extraordinary heritage, not dissimilar to Vogue. But you've got to keep moving forward. You use that as a foundation and a platform, but it shouldn't kind of hold you back, and it shouldn't restrain you. It should actually kind of free you up to dream. And I think that's why the industry, and actually broader than our industry, was excited by your new kind of role.
Great. And I just want to know, what was it like sort of growing up? What were some of your earliest memories growing up in Britain?
I didn't really know that this fashion world existed growing up. I always gravitated towards magazines and music. Music was a big thing, and through music I kind of discovered fashion. I didn't identify it as fashion. I identified it as an identity, and I wanted to be a part of that music group, and I wanted to kind of have that look, and I kind of got into fashion in that way. How about you?
About music, I remember sort of growing up in the heart of Ladbroke Grove, council houses. All I remember was music and sounds. I remember colours, Portobello Road. I remember sort of all the sort of Jamaica music blasting out next to Ska, the melting pot that we love in Britain. And I remember always going out to Brixton Market at the weekends with my mum, and I really remember the colours. The colours and the smells. And I always say, for me growing up, I felt like I lived in two worlds because, you know, I'd be at home and there'll be all these sort of exotic foods and colours and people visiting, speaking a different language sometimes. And then
Did they feel exotic at the time? Did they feel exotic?
No, now I look back and I was like, my God, I was really lucky because I lived in two worlds. And I'll go to school and it's like a normal school.
Right, yeah.
You know, and just, that was my idea of Britain. The love that I had for Britain came from just that multicultural world that I grew up in, a world that was really about diversity. I mean, for me, I just, you know, I've just started, but the idea of possibility, what is possible, the idea of being able to embrace a new generation who maybe would have looked at Vogue a couple of years ago and thought, you know, that's not for me, or I couldn't do that. Just that idea that if I can do it, you can.
Yeah, completely.
And the idea is to sort of, you know, keep the pool of talent going, keep the conversation about what it means to live in Britain today and in the world, keep the conversation about diversity. Sort of, there's a lot of things that we're kind of planning. I mean, we'll probably have this conversation in a year's time.
Exactly, I'm looking forward to it.
But there's an excitement that I feel with my team, the idea of, you know, let's create something for now. Like you said before, you know, there's a huge history behind Vogue, but we can't let that sort of shackle us. So Christopher, how do you use your brand to showcase British talent and move fashion sort of forward?
I think youth is so important that we celebrate it and that we give youth a platform because it's their world. I mean, we're kind of, you know, we've moved on a little bit, and I think it's kind of what's relevant for young people today, and I think they are so much broader than probably we were at that age.
Their world.
It's extraordinary,
And who are some people who inspired you in your life and your career?
You know, I think it comes from all areas. You know, there are the people, of course, that we work with. You know, I feel very privileged that I've worked with extraordinary people and been to school in amazing places. You know, the Royal College of Art for me was a very special place. But as were all my education and my teachers and professors. But you know, and then I was lucky. I worked for Donna Karan, who is just an amazing woman and visionary. And then Tom Ford, who, you know, today continues to be a brilliant, multifaceted, creative person. You know, designer, filmmaker. So you know, those are kind of the obvious influences. But behind all that is all the, you know, the films that I've watched, the exhibitions that I've seen, the people that I feel very lucky to have met because, you know, through life, you know, and they can be, you know, the ladies or the gents who weave the fabric or make the clothes can be as inspiring as going to see, you know, a David Hockney exhibition. Great. How about you, Edward? Where kind of, because you've been on a real journey.
For me, I mean, I remember sort of growing up, I was always sort of very in a dreamlike state. So I was always fascinated by sort of people like, I don't know, David Bailey, Julie Christie, Diana Ross. There was this people who kind of lived in this world that was so removed from my world. And then again, through that, I went through, you know, ID Magazine and Terry Jones and people who really sort of helped my career. But I think ultimately, the people that always inspired me the most were people like my mother, sort of her mother, and just watching how hard you know they worked and instilling that sort of work ethic. You know, I remember my mother saying, "So long as you work twice as hard, you'll be able to achieve." And it's just little things like that I still carry with me.
It's amazing, though, because it really does instill a tenacity and a belief and kind of that you really do have to work hard to kind of, and it's not even about achieving the material things. It's about feeling fulfilled. And that's where we're very lucky if we can have a job where it's almost a hobby in many
Yes.
respects.
We're
you know.
very
It's
lucky.
kind of difficult for me sometimes to say I'm going to work when I'm actually spending a day working on an exhibition of photography that I love. It's a
It hits you
we're lucky.
sometimes, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Like I was on a
Yeah, it
shoot the
does.
past 2 days on this shoot, and I'm sitting there with some of my old friends, and there's music playing, and we're laughing and creating amazing images.
Yeah.
And I just remembered what my mother said, like,
Yeah.
you know,
You have
just
to pinch
enjoy
yourself.
it, work
Yeah.
twice as hard, and,
Yeah.
and we'll be here one
Yeah.
day. And
Yeah.
you're here.
And you're here. Exciting. Exciting times.
Oh,
Amazing.
that was
fun,
fun.
Edward. Thank you.